In this lesson, we're going to finish up the fan assembly. Alright, so in the last lesson we had created the fan blades, and we created the rotor for our fan blades, and we fit those inside of our casing, and now what we need to do is we need to create some sort of element from the casing that would actually hold up the rotor. We don't want that to just be floating in space. It looks a little odd. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create kind of this arm that sticks out from the casing and just comes up and covers up this rotor here. So to get started with that, let's go to Editable Poly, and I'm going to go ahead and show end results just so I can see that. And I'm going to go to Edge Mode and select this edge right here along the middle. Okay, so right here along the bottom here. If you want to turn off Edge or Turbo Smooth so you can see it a little bit easier, you can do so. Let's hold Shift and select this ring, or again you can hit ring here. And let's use Connect to create one segment, and we're going to use one segment there, and we're going to use our slide, and we're going to drop that down to where it's pretty much even with the bottom here. Now let's hit F on our keyboard, and then I'm going to hit F3 just so I can see that. So you can see the edge is right here. Let's just drag that down to where that's even. So negative 34 is pretty close. Let's hit OK on that. Let's hit F3 and then P on the keyboard to go to perspective, and then Z to kind of frame in our selection. So now that we have this, let's go to polygon mode, and we can expand out by hitting this plus sign and go to polygon mode, and let's select these 4 polygons right here, and we're going to extrude those straight out until they meet up with this object here. So let's use extrude, and we're going to extrude that out to where it comes out to the very edge. So around 17 is a good number. We'll hit OK. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to Edge Mode. We'll select these corners, and I want to push those back. So I'm going to go to my Move tool and push those back in the Y. Okay. Now you'll notice that we're using the view direction of Y, and that's kind of skewing that, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to use the local Y, and that doesn't really seem to be working too much either. So what can we do? Well, we can use view, but let's go ahead and constrain the movement here. So let's constrain that to the topology that we already have. So let's use the constrain to edge, and we'll drag that down in the Y, and you'll see that that stays straight there. So we don't have any of that skewing. Okay. Now once you get past a certain point, it'll go ahead and start to skew a little bit, but we're looking pretty good here. Okay, so we've got that shape. Let's go ahead and smooth that out, looking at that Turbo Smooth, and it looks pretty good, except it's kind of hanging off there. It's not really doing all that well for us. So let's go to polygon mode, and with those polygons selected, let's just move that out. Let's turn off those constraints. So go to none, and let's switch this to local, and we should be able to move straight out in the Z. Let's pull that out to where that butts right up against that object. Now I want to tighten up some of the geometry here, so let's create a loop up here at the top. So I'm going to use my Swift loop while I'm here, and just create a loop right up here. And that tightens that up nice and neat there. Let's grab our Move tool, and let's push that back some. Doesn't have to go all the way out like that. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Now I want to create a little bit of a design down here along the bottom. I just kind of think that the flatness of it is just a little too much. So I'm going to show you how we can select a loop of polygons. If you select one polygon here, you can hold Shift and select the next polygon in that loop, and that will select that entire loop there. Okay, now I'm going to hold Control and select these 2 polygons right here, and we're going to use Inset. Okay, and let's find that. We'll inset that in. One thing that I want you to notice with inset and working with polygons is if you notice your selection goes from this bright red to this dark red, that means that you have crossed the topology, and now what you're looking at is the back sides of some geometry, and that's not going to work. So to remedy this, we just need to take our inset amount down, and you'll see that now everything is bright red. Let's just type in 0.5 here and hit enter. Then we'll go ahead and hit OK, and then we'll extrude this in a negative direction. So I'm going to extrude this in a negative direction to where it kind of pushes up into that casing. Okay, and I kind of like that design there. Let's go to -1 just to make that a nice even number there, and then we'll hit OK. Alright, so now let's go to the top and let's do the same thing. Hold Shift and select that loop. We're going to inset, and you'll notice that that 0.5 value has carried over because we've used these inset settings before on this object. So we can just hit OK, and then we're going to extrude that in a negative direction. Now I want to show you a different way of extruding. We've been using the settings, and I use that quite often, but we do have the ability to extrude interactively. So with this selection, if I hover over my selection and I left click and hold, I can drag up to extrude in a positive direction, or I can drag down to extrude in a negative direction. Now whenever you release, it's going to finalize that extrude. Now if you come in and you make a mistake, let's say that you drag that down too far, you want to drag that back up. If you click and hold again and try to drag up, that's going to create a new extrusion, and you don't want to do that. Sometimes that can create some very odd results. So what you need to do is hit Control Z and back up to that original state, and then hold, left click and hold and try it again. Alright, so that's just something to watch out for whenever using this method. Final thing that we need to do is we need to get the casing off of the edge of these fan blades. So I'm going to turn off extrude. Let's select this set of polygons right here. So I'm going to select this one, hold Shift, select the next one in line, and that's going to select all of those polygons. Now what we're going to do is we're going to extrude these out. So I'm going to use my extrude settings, and one thing that you'll notice is that it's extruding all of these polygons in one direction, and it's looking kind of funny. What I want it to do is I want it to extrude, I hit T on the keyboard to go back, I want it to extrude in its own local direction, but I want it to extrude inward. So it's extruding as a group right now, and you can see that with your settings here, your extrude settings. So you can extrude as a group, you can extrude by local normal, which is what I want. So here you can see that with a negative direction, it extrudes into the case in its own local normal direction, and it looks really good. Now we could also do by polygon, and what that will do is extrude in a local normal, but then it will separate the polygons, okay? So to create kind of this indented look. Now I want to do local normal because I want those to stay together, but still extrude in their local normal direction. Let's do -1.5 on that, and then we'll hit OK. So now my fan blades have plenty of room to turn and move around in there. So that looks pretty good. Alright, so now that we have this, let's go ahead and work on the next portion of our VTOL here, and we're going to kind of go back to modeling with shapes, but we're going to use some different modifiers to create the 3D geometry, and we're going to use that to create the wings and the tail wings that you see on the VTOL. Alright, so I'll see you then.